Up next, we have a sponsor video for all of you. It's from Biopic. Can we please have the video?
An off-season, busy winning. You run on low sleep, high stress, and a gut that's always off. Pitch at 10, crisis at 2, strategy at 6. Always on. Welcome to Biopic, a next-gen health service built around you. We map what fuels you and decode what quietly depletes you, building your personalized health blueprint metabolism, hormones, gut, cognition, and recovery. Powered by deep systems level testing, an AI-powered digital twin, a multidisciplinary team that connects the dots. Ongoing expert care. We recalibrate your health for peak performance. Your focus sharpens, your edge endures. You don't just live, you live limitless. Biopeak.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Biopeak, India's first full-stack longevity clinic. So you can visit the Biopeak Experience Zone on the terrace to discover how they harness stress for peak performance. So with that, we'll move on to our next session, which is going to be a panel discussion on rewiring the system in the era of AI flair. Our first speaker for this session, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Vineeth Suresh, who's building Heineken Business Services India from ground up, establishing Hyderabad as Heineken's newest GCC and a strategic delivery and transformation hub for the company's operating markets worldwide. He's a career GCC builder with over 2 decades spent standing up, scaling, and leading global business service organizations for some of the world's most recognizable consumer brands. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Mr. Vineeth Suresh. Give it up with a round of applause, please. Joining him, we have someone with over 30 years of experience. Our next speaker has led large-scale global transformation initiatives for some of the world's leading enterprises. As the global head of Infosys GCC practice, he helps organizations build and scale future-ready innovation hubs. A trusted advisor to Fortune 500 companies and a respected industry thought leader. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Deval Shah. Come on, everyone. We can all applaud louder than that. Yes. Superb. And now, finally, to our moderator for this session is a respected academic, advisor, and researcher in the GCC ecosystem with deep expertise in IT services and enterprise transformation. He has helped establish and scale capability centers for organizations including Kerala, LG, and many more. He's also co-designed and leads IIM Bangalore's pioneering GCC Leadership Development Program. Everyone, a big round of applause to Dr. Anilesh Seth.
Thank you. Is it on? Yes, it is. Fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Today's theme is rewiring the system in the era of AI flares. What are AI flares? Those are those sudden leaps in AI capability that are forcing enterprises, GCCs, and service providers to rethink architecture, talent, and governance. We are fortunate to have 2 leaders who represent the perfect combination for this balance. Vineeth Suresh brings a dual lens, consulting experience, and now into a GCC. And of course, Deval Shah, from a GCC into a consulting experience with Infosys. So it's the absolute perfect combination. Incidentally, Deval also spoke at the IIMB GCC Leadership Program that we inaugurated last year. He'll be speaking this year again. And let me take this opportunity to let you know that there's a stall outside. For those of you who have missed the announcement, we have the program starting on August of 20th. Please go and register. So together, they represent both sides of the enterprise GCC provider triangle, making them the ideal pair for today's conversation. Let's dive in. My opening question is for you, Deval. Infosys sees transformation across industries. How is Infosys working with enterprises and GCCs to become co-architects, in the era of AI flares? Great if you can exemplify your answer.
No, I think this is, first of all, thank you, Anilesh and IIM for inviting us. I think the world is changing faster than what we anticipated. Enterprises are now moving from AI pilots to true AI-led enterprises. And the same is happening with the GCC ecosystem. GCC ecosystem is now becoming a reflection of the enterprise, and to a great extent are becoming the innovation hub and the transformation hub for the enterprise. So we as Infosys work along with the enterprise, along with the GCCs in bringing our accelerators, our best practices, our industry perspective to the table to help both the enterprise and the GCC. One classic example, couple of examples I'll give you. We kind of are setting up for Citizens Bank innovation hub where we are helping Citizens Bank enterprise and also the GCC in Hyderabad transform into an AI-first organization. So we are going to look at their entire business process. We're going to take use case by use case and then kind of transform those use cases, reinvent the use cases, and challenge the conventional way of working into an AI-first way of working. So that's something that we are doing. And this is now becoming a table stake for every new enterprise that is coming to India. We also have created accelerators. So we have something called as a Topaz Fabric, which helps you kind of discover, build, govern, and run AI at scale using our Topaz Fabric, which is platform agnostic. We come in with our accelerators, which help the organization scale up and implement their AI faster. We also have taken a next step where we have taken our Topaz Fabric Studio and made it into a Topaz marketplace. And we are inviting our customers to experiment for free using our Topaz Fabric and vibing, do kind of build agents on the platform that we have created so that they can accelerate their transformation journey.
Thank you, and especially thank you for exemplifying it as I had requested. I'm now going to turn to you, Vineeth, to see it from the other side. I won't say the other side of the fence because there's clearly fantastic collaboration that's taking place here. Now, your GCC was set up, about a year ago?
Yes.
Right. Relatively new. Now, you already have several other GCCs in different geographies, right? So what capabilities, first question, what capabilities are you building here in Bangalore?
What capabilities am I?
Are you building here in Hyderabad?
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let me take the first question then. See, we are a capability center, but also looking at it as a transformation center, right? The kind of capabilities that we're building, if you talk about core skills, we look at both technology and non-technology. Non-technology is all the corporate functions that you would usually see in a capability center. It could start from finance operations to supply chain to HR. Can get into COE bills like tax COEs and also in certain ways procurement COEs and things like that. On the technology side, what we are really focused on is while we have our core technology platforms, the big call out this time around is actually building AI and data COEs. Data engineering, data analytics, data platforms, governances. On the AI side, it's all about how do we actually kind of create products and much more AI-led analytics for our markets. This is the building blocks that we are going after. In a year, we have reached the vision that we wanted to get to. We've already started building our COE lens around AI and around data. While the core platform, integration, commerce, function, technology, all of that continues to get built.
Okay, so now that you're looking at the AI, the COE, the data side, how do you view partnerships with service providers to accelerate your journey?
Okay, see, the way we look at partnerships, and to be very, very honest, not just because I'm with Heineken, but also when I was not with Heineken and I was in the industry doing other things, partnerships become really important because what it does help us is achieve a rapid scale up. So we're looking at sourcing models where we really require a big boost in order for us to get skills that are required immediately, which we internally don't want to build further. It's a big boost up for scale and for scope of what we want to create. That's the time we'll go after partners. And we want to keep it like that. One of the things that we really don't want partnerships to go after is take accountability over outcomes. Because that becomes a core forte and an IP that we want to retain within the organization, right? Where we want support is primarily to help us get to understanding scale and scope. And most importantly, you kind of mentioned it, partners actually have a better understanding about what's happening in the markets.
Right.
They have various other customers and clients where they're seeing what's happening and what's latest and greatest. We want to tap into understanding that because that becomes an accelerator for our thinking.
Right.
Right? So what we don't want is only delivery. We want delivery outcomes, but we also want intel. For me, that is actually a partnership. Rather than me having given away a part and parcel of the work that we do internally and expecting delivery, that for me is just a delivery engine. And that's just augmentation of created staff in another enterprise. Most importantly, true partnership means that I'm learning and I'm getting intel about what's happening in the market that I could use internally.
Fair. And when you look at a company like Infosys, for example, they have their own Topaz framework, as you were talking about. So there's clearly tremendous scope there for partnership. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Is there and let me ask you this, Deval. Is there a possibility of duplication between GCCs and service providers? How do you create a shared you said partnership, right, Vineeth? How do you create a shared transformation platform instead of parallel efforts?
So I think first thing first, right? The whole kind of old way of working of GCC and the SIs being competition, I think that's a thing of past. Those days kind of disappeared, I would say, 10 years ago. And now there is a very cohesive ecosystem, which is enterprise, GCC, and the SI working together. So is there a possibility of duplication in transformation? My answer would be no. I don't think anybody wants to spend their dollars, whether it's the enterprise or the GCC, doing the same thing with two people. So I think those things are completely gone. The way the model is evolving is the GCC, who are very close to the enterprise, have a very, very strong and deep understanding of the business. And they are the ones who are able to kind of articulate the business problem. They are able to articulate the product ownership. And as we just spoke about, we are able to bring in the accelerators. We are able to bring in our transformation. We are able to bring in the industry best practices. At the end of the day, the SIs have work across various industry, work across various clients. We know how the industry is shaping, whether it's in beverages or retail or logistics or banking and financial. So we are able to bring those best practices and we are able to bring those accelerators across, which would help with the transformation. So I don't think there is any duplication of the effort, but you have a smile on your face. So if you disagree, then happy to hear your view.
Yeah, no, that's a good one, right? You read it. Okay, that's fantastic. Agree and disagree. I'll come to the disagreement first, right? I do believe, and in all my years of being in the industry, and you've obviously seen it in some aspects, there can be duplication, okay? But it's not the partner's fault. By and large, I would say it is companies like ourselves which are not very articulate about what exactly is needed from a partner.
Right.
And when you don't explain, what happens is, and I don't really like the word shared accountability. I think there is shared responsibility in this world. It becomes an understanding that somebody else is accountable because you're not clear. You're not clear about the outcomes. Partners go away doing what they think they need to do, and then they'll get into a framework of, well, I'm owning it and I'm accountable, where the enterprise feels that, well, you know, we are accountable and vice versa, and then the blame game starts. So I do believe that there is, at least in today's world where technology is really leapfrogging and we see all sorts of stuff coming through, be very clear about why you're contracting. Be very clear about the outcomes. And if the outcomes are very clear, I don't think there'll be duplication. If the outcomes are not clear, if not really stated out what your intent is, I do sometimes feel that you cross over. And that might be a cause for concern. Where I definitely agree is what we all spoke about, which is the frames that the partner brings in, which is really, really important for companies like Heineken, and the learnings that we can actually kind of collaborate towards. When it comes to platform conversations, etc., there I do think both can agree to stop duplication from happening, get to one version of the truth, which means you actually kind of do all work out of a single data platform or a single understanding about what your platforms and your data systems look like. And when you're carving things out, even if the partner is being told to provide for one product line and internally another product line is getting worked, at least you're all working in a singular system rather than parallel systems. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Yeah.
I just want to take a minute to just respond. What you said is correct, but I think I see that shrinking. So in the past, what used to happen is the enterprise used to work with the partners, and the GCC may or may not be directly involved. Now, at least from my frame of reference, what we are seeing is that it's a three-party ecosystem where enterprise, GCC, and the partners are working together. So that duplication which was happening, and as GCCs are taking more and more global functional leadership role, some of those decisions are also being made from the GCC itself. So it is shrinking. In the past, we used to see a lot of duplication, but now with the tri-party model that's evolving, hopefully we would kind of reach a stage where we don't see those duplications happening.
So Vineeth, that's exactly what we want.
So firstly, thank you for disagreeing. Right? It's only when you have a disagreement that you have an interesting debate. Yeah. So if you look at the Venn diagram of collaboration, we're seeing that thing is really increasing. I'm going to pick up on one of the things that you mentioned, Deval, which is, maybe about a decade ago or so, we saw these as two potentially separate paths, or at least the media did and some of the companies did. But clearly now, in the era of AI flares, when you look at transformation, look at technology, there's some very significant synergies out here, with the result that India as a whole is now able to play a very significant role in the transformation of global enterprises, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to move to an interesting point, slightly different, but very, very connected. How do both ecosystems, or the ecosystem, jointly manage the shrinking skill half-life, where skills may become obsolete very rapidly? And I'm deliberately using the term half-life here. Maybe we'll start with you, Vineeth.
Surely. No, it's a very, very interesting question. I think very, very, very close to what capability centers and partners are facing to. See, for me, the way I look at this is, there's a lot of tooling out there, yeah? And getting people upgraded or educated on the tooling is really important. But what one shouldn't forget, at least the capability center leaders shouldn't forget, is there's a lot more than just tooling, because tooling can get changed very rapidly.
Sure.
Yeah? What it would be, 18 months to 12 months to 6 months, and it keeps shrinking. Every single day there's something new that comes up, or something new is modeled on existing AI tools. But what we can't forget as capability center leaders is building the domain knowledge, building the expertise on the questioning of the decisions, even what AI throws at you. If I am a brewer, I think I should know how Alcobev behaves. Yeah?
Right.
And the people who work on these processes also need to understand what actually makes Alcobev tick.
Right.
And if the AI tool is throwing out certain things, the human judgment that needs to come through has to be developed. Now that won't shrink, that will only exponentially grow.
Right.
And the reason is they're getting much better information to use from AI tooling. So in Heineken, which is a very publicly declared product, we have something called as ADA. ADA helps all our salespeople on the spur of the moment understand what marketing and what promotional sales exercises to take. And they can model it up on the fly. while they're going towards a client site or customer site in our case, when they're going to the customer site, they can literally find out what exactly will drive sales in that particular region and what promotional marketing decisions have to be made.
Right.
But the decision is not done by the AI tool. It's only throwing you all the tooling information, right? So for me, I think if you look at it, capability on the tooling is very important, but that's the one that shrinks. The capability that needs to be built on the domain and on the understanding of your sector and on the understanding of your organization, I think is compounding. And that's the way we want to play it, and that's the way we are trying to build it in our capability centers as well. Give a lot of understanding about the domain and about the company that they work for.
Couldn't agree more. I think the domain, the knowledge about the business is going to be super crucial. Tools are going to change every day. So completely agree. In your perspective, Deval?
No, I fully echo what we just spoke about. I think we also are trying to do something very similar. And before I go into those details, I think the technology, if you ask any one of us around the table, our AI strategy 1 year ago was very different than our AI strategy today. So when you talk about half skill, I think it's just constantly evolving. So the challenge for the industry is going to be how are we going to be nimble? We spoke about building the domain knowledge, but how are we going to be nimble to adopt to constantly changing world? Claude 6 months ago was nowhere in the picture. And now we are only talking about Claude. So how are we going to kind of adopt to the constantly changing models, constantly changing landscape, and how do we create that talent force? And I use the word, I used to use this a lot a few years ago, of engineers versus developers. And what I used to say is a developer knows one technology and is good at doing one thing. Engineer is able to adapt to different evolving technologies and recalibrate himself or herself quickly. I think we are in that stage where the recalibration would be required constantly.
Right.
And how do organizations adopt to this environment? How do we create opportunity for upskilling is going to be very, very important. And the second aspect is exactly to what Vineeth just spoke about. We at Infosys are also looking at what we call as a Y-shaped model. The STEM is going to be the technology people, but then the Y, where it's going to split into, is going to be a functional and a domain track to what you spoke about, where you need to have a lot of business context, and then there's going to be a digitization and a technology track. Ideal world would be where we get the Y into one person, where the business and the technology is into one, but that's still kind of ways to go for all of us. And those new AI pods which are being created, Uber has implemented that very successfully. Right. So how do you take the technology and business and create a combined AI pod is going to be, to me, the future way of working.
I love the classification of the Y model, and looks like you want to go from the Y to the I. That's really what you're looking at.
That's I is also there in the Y model.
Yes, it is. Fantastic. So let's shift gears a little bit. I think part of this you already covered, but I'm going to rephrase this a bit. Now, AI flares, they create volatility and hallucinations, model drift. How should governance and accountability be shared between GCCs and service providers? Maybe, Vineeth, let's start with you.
Okay. Again, I think accountability is, again, not shared, right? So we'll talk about shared responsibilities. The reason why I'm stressing on this point is, irrespective of whether I work with a partner or I don't work with a partner, I think the accountability towards a regulator or an accountability towards a customer or a consumer is always within the organization, right? Now, if I'm building AI models and I've got partners working with us, I think it's very clear that we are using the partners for a specific outcome. And if we can get to a stage where, along with the partners, we have shared responsibility over the product development, the monitoring of it, the implementation, the close governance around what it can and cannot do, I think that's the true partnership that you can get when you're working together on it.
Okay.
The governance also becomes shared from a responsibility perspective, because we want to very clearly understand when we are questioned by either the regulator or when things go wrong, that we not are just looking at a model, but we are looking at really what went into making the decision on how the AI model operates and how it works, right? So classic cases, we've been in situations where we've built the model works quite well, but then there are certain flaws that emerge when it comes to a place where it ends and the decision making has to happen, and we are not too familiar, and that there is a purpose why I'm not saying the name, because I can't give you the name of a product that doesn't work. But we are in the situation where we are looking at it and we are now thinking about, well, these decision points are not right for us to go into a proper evaluated outcome. At that point in time, when we really want to call it out and say, put a stop to it, I don't want to get into a conversation that you have to raise a ticket to put a stop.
Right.
Yeah, that becomes an unshared responsibility. Right? We want to work with the partner to say, the partner's also calling it out and saying, sorry, I don't think this is working the way it needs to work. And we are jointly responsible for making sure that we put a stop to it. And then we go back into development, right? So I do think if you're looking at all of this, governances are very important. It becomes shared and we need to get there. When it comes to conversations about model changes or model drifts, expectation always was that there is an outcome that's going to be delivered by someone and we'll keep quiet. But I think in today's changing tooling, it has to be actually more proactive. It needs to talk to you at the moment the drift is happening, rather than wait for it to happen and get into post-mortem analysis. Because by that time, probably somebody's used it to make certain decisions. We don't want to get into that space, right? So if you look at it from my perspective, I think it's absolutely shared responsibilities if you're co-creating. But I don't want the organization getting the accountability out of delivering it, because it impacts customers, consumers, and potentially if you're doing something, the regulator will come and ask you. That's the way I would answer this question.
Sounds like fantastic advice. Deval, anything you'd like to add?
No, I fully agree. I think the accountability of this stays with the enterprise, right? Because the enterprise, slightly contrary, GCC also at the end of the day is an arm's length kind of agreement. So the true responsibility with the regulator lies with the enterprise, and that doesn't go away. What the partner can bring to the table is responsible. We have a responsible AI framework. How do we kind of detect hallucination? How do we kind of create transparency? How do we create visibility? Where do we bring human in the loop? Those are the best practices we can bring to the table, but fully agree. And you touched upon this also, that the joint governance, the joint value creation council that we need to create, partner can participate, help bring the best practices, but the accountability has to be with the enterprise.
All right. AI is collapsing traditional roles and creating new ones. And so far, we've been talking about governance, we've been talking about shared responsibilities, we talked about accountability. What recommendations do you have about what talent models GCC should build internally, and what talent should be sourced from service providers? And I'm not talking about a contract kind of a thing, contract staffing. I don't mean that. That's just staff augmentation. I really don't mean that at all. Right? Deval, your views.
No, so I think all of us, I'm speaking on behalf of the industry, right? One thing we are looking for by the dozens is the FDEs. We all want forward deploy engineers. That's the need of the hour. The industry is looking for it. All of us are building that capability. We are kind of talking to various organizations, trying to partner with organizations to do the same work. But then again, the split between GCC and SI, I think it's again going to go back to the same stuff that we just spoke about. The domain-centric, product-centric definitely needs to stay within the GCCs. The technology expertise is something that we can definitely bring at scale to the table. One of the other things which is happening very interesting is, and I can't take name of the customer, but with two of our customers right now, because it's still not published on LinkedIn, they are reaching out to us to upskill their employees. So we have a very strong career development plan. We have, as many of you know, we have our Mysore center where we kind of send everybody for upskilling. For example, I had to go for 1 week of AI training myself in Mysore to upskill myself. So enterprises are reaching out to us to say, hey, whatever program you are running for your organization, can you help run it for 50 people, 100 people, and can you accommodate them in Mysore? So that's something, it's a new collaboration which is happening, which in the past we have not seen that happen so much. So that potentially is a different model I'm seeing. But over to you.
Perfect. Nothing to add on that front, but a few probable things that needs to happen in capability centers or are happening in capability centers, and some things that are happening in Heineken as well. Spoke about AI, program availability, certifications, etc. Heineken has a lot of it on the learning management systems already. And the way we are actually kind of looking at it is everybody has to be at least AI fundamentally aware. And I think that's like strapline that we want to have. We are a brewer, but we're also someone who loves technology. If you see our connected brewery conversations, it's fantastic. We have taken all the IoTs and put it into one layer, and we are monitoring it out completely without really needing human intervention. So there's a lot of work that's been going on to train people around AI fundamentals. The second thing that I would say, and it's something that all capability centers probably grapple with right now. Traditional models have been, we've got a bunch of people who are juniors, who come in, fresh graduates, and who get into transactional environments and they're running operations. That's where most AI is getting targeted at, if you look at it from a capability center, process-centric organizations. What we need to do is shift the balance. We need to get these folks more into decision-making jobs. And we need to train them to question and to actually be people who are challenging status quo. That, for me, I think is the next level of capability build, because we owe it. As an industry, we owe it. That we don't bring people into just doing transactional, process-oriented work. We need to move them up towards more judgmental and more decision-making. And that training will only happen, again, to our earlier point, you have to get them trained towards the domain and get them trained towards understanding the organizations and the sector that they belong to.
Right. No, I think those are great perspectives, and it prompts a thought right now, which is, let's say this is a hypothetical question. Let's say there's a new, reasonably large organization that is setting up a GCC in India somewhere. We don't have to worry about where they're setting it up. It seems to be that in this era of AI flares, they shouldn't be doing it in isolation. Right? I think there's a lot to benefit from the collaboration, from the ecosystem, and of course from service providers. So you would agree with that, right? So it's not something that we come in and say, hey, we're going to do this all ourselves, right? I think there's great benefit in actually working with and you guys are relatively new that way.
Sure. See, I think if you look at wanting to set up a new capability center and you want to do it very traditionally, when I say traditionally, right? No partner ecosystems, all by myself, I know it, I've done it 4 times around, you're not going to leapfrog.
Right.
You're going to stay where you are, and you're going to take a long time to build, not just capability, but even get off the ground. I think partnerships are really important, and choosing the right partner, of course, is a framework, and we can keep going on and on about it, but partnerships are important for various reasons. One, they bring in scale at large scope, which we can utilize in order for us to accelerate. Partners bring in an understanding of the ecosystem because they've done it multiple times over, so the learnings are there and it's important. How many ever times you as an individual have done it, we also have to recognize that the organization is doing it probably for the first or second time, and then they're doing it in a country which probably they don't resonate too much to. So the partners bring in a lot of intel, and that intel is the one that I think is the most important. The third one, which I completely agree, he touched upon it when we were discussing another question, is it's shrinking. The difference between how you view a partner of the past to a partner of the current, I think it's shifted gears.
Yeah, I think
today
that's
you can
important,
really find spot-on good partnerships who are not tactical, who are going to be there for strategic advice as well.
Right.
So it's not just a delivery partner, we're also getting to a stage where everybody is coming in with a true partner ecosystem conversation. And that I think helps really well, helps you get going faster, learn from the environment, know what is happening out in the market, helps you leapfrog, which I think is really important. You don't want to spend 20 years before you realize how you can get into value creation. I think those times of patience and wanting to wait and see how things go is all getting cut short. And with, of course, with everything that's happening in the AI world, I think it's a very different conversation if you want to do it alone.
Great. I'm very conscious of the time. I know we are the ones who are standing between everybody and lunch, or rather sitting between everyone and lunch. And hopefully there might be a couple of questions. So let me just pose one last question and we'll open it up to the audience, which is, and this has nothing to do with GCC service provider collaboration. Right? What's the one thing leaders, I'll start with you, Deval, what's the one thing leaders must unlearn during the AI era? I hope I'm not putting you on the spot here.
No, interesting question. I think more than, unlearn, learn, I think the big change that we need to do is start on a clean slate. One of the things that I see many organizations do is they are looking at a piecemeal strategy. How do I kind of engineer my fraud process? I think we are at an inflection point where we need to look at how the enterprise is going to be AI first. Right. And that's something is really, really critical. And the other thing is slightly different, but I just want to add to your last question where you were talking about GCCs coming into India for the first time. The enterprise are expecting the GCCs to be AI first, but that is kind of sort of difficult to do.
True.
Because unless the enterprise is going to kind of have a global change management exercise, you cannot have a GCC being AI first and the enterprise not. So I think those two things needs to be tied in together, and that whole mindset shift and the strategy that needs to change has to happen to a more of a AI first organization against anything else.
That's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. Vineeth, your thoughts on what's the one thing leaders must unlearn during this era?
I would say listen more and observe more.
Okay.
As leaders, I think we fall into the trap of thinking we know it all. That needs to go away. No more fixed mindsets. I think we really need to listen to what is happening. And there are a lot of people who will tell you how new things can actually help solve majority of the problems that an enterprise faces. I don't think we're listening as enough. We should listen more.
Well, thank you for that. Now, in today's conversation, AI flares are rewriting the rules faster than any of us expected. The message from today is very clear from today's conversation. GCCs and service providers can't operate as parallel tracks. They have to function as one integrated system. Shared platforms, shared talent, shared governance. The organizations that learn fastest and build together will lead this next era. So thank you very much for your thoughts. The rewiring in the AI flares era has already begun. And with that, we can open it up to any questions that might be there. Oh, I have to come there? Okay. Vineeth, you get the first one. Vineeth, you moved from a Big Four consulting advisory seat into an operator role running a GCC end to end. How has that shift changed how skeptical you are of AI vendors' promises you might have advised enterprises to take versus in what's actually deployable at scale? That's a very interesting question.
Yeah, this is really, I need to think quickly as to how I'll answer this. I don't think I was ever skeptical. What I am aware of, to be honest, is are we talking about the right outcomes? And when I was in consulting, that was the first question I would ever ask if anybody is trying to work on an AI strategy. What do you really want to achieve by doing an AI strategy? And I think that's really, really critical. It's very easy to fall into the trap of measuring things. So what does the AI do for it to improve process time? Fantastic. And what will I do with that? What's the outcome you want to achieve? Yeah. By increasing process time, are you actually getting faster into the market? Are you able to onboard a supplier well ahead of time? Are you getting an NPD out in the market much faster than what you used to do before. I think that's the place where I get skeptical now, right? Or at least aware. As far as what it can do and what it can help achieve, everybody has a different interpretation. My view is very simple. It's an absolute good tool for you to get in, something that helps accelerate your pace into doing what you need to do. But I still don't believe at this point in time it can replace human judgment. Yeah, it can nudge you, but I don't think it will take away what a human experience can bring in. And I've got a very solid examples of what I see even in Heineken. It'll take you to a place where it'll open up options and then you can question those options. But it'll never ever make a decision for you, because that's the place where we'll bring the intelligence and the expertise of running a brewing organization into focus. So I ask all these questions now that I'm on the other side, whenever there is an AI partner who comes in saying, great, are you preaching to the choir, or are you playing to the gallery, or are you really challenging me to say, are you sure about the AI strategy you want to have? Yeah? I used to ask the question on the other side. Now I want partners to ask me that question, which I think will make it much more real as a partnership.
Thank you, Vineeth. Do we have another question? Yes, there is. This hasn't been addressed to anyone in particular. There's a clear trend in services firms towards flattening the pyramid. Fewer junior staff, more emphasis on judgment over execution. But if that's the case, how do we train and nurture the next generation of domain experts when there are fewer entry-level roles today? Very loaded question. Who wants to take that?
No, so I think this is a very good question, but this is not a new trend, right? The pyramid has been a thing of past for a long period of time. The industry has moved to what I would call as a diamond shape model, where we have more people at the middle compared to what we used to have, and we have less number of people at the top and the less number of people at the bottom. Now, does it mean that the bottom layer is going away? Absolutely not. The bottom layer still remains, but the bottom layer now is becoming much more niche. It's not generic, it's more technical experts, they are more domain experts. Not just the SI, the industry as a whole are building capabilities to ensure that the techies are also domain experts. So when I used to be a GCC head in financial services, my whole thing to the freshers was, if you want to be a techie, go join Adobe, Google, Amazon. But if you want to learn banking and apply technology to banking, then come join us. And I think that is the shift that is happening. The number of people at an entry level is definitely reducing. There is no denying, and that's the case not just for SI or GCCs, that's for industry as a whole. But that layer is still going to be there, and we are going to build upon that for future leaders.
Thank you. Okay, so here's a very pointed question for you, Deval. Outcome-based engagements are becoming a big talking point among service firms. From your perspective, how is the industry actually shaping around this model, and what shifts are you seeing in practice?
Yeah, I think good question. I think this is a very broad question. I think it changes from industry to industry. So kind of as Vineeth spoke about, in financial services, it's more collaborative in nature. Some of with the GCCs, it's more collaborative in nature. It may or may not be outcome driven. Especially when we are working with the GCCs, because it may be they are using the SIs for scaling up and scaling down and other things.
Fair point.
But when we are doing transformation program, when we are working with the enterprise and the GCCs together on a transformation program, then the outcome-based model is becoming more and more prevalent. Right now, we are seeing almost majority of our engagement, the enterprises are looking at certain outcome. And they are wanting commitments, especially in the AI era, on what is the outcome that we could provide 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line. So we do see a shifting model. The new GCCs which are coming in, they are also now kind of saying that if we were to do build, operate, transfer model, at the end of 3 years, at the end of 4 years, what is the outcome that we get from the transformation that you are going to drive on behalf of us. So that model is shifting, and I think that shift would continue to happen over a period of time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for that wonderful session. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. All right, I think for a session just before lunch, I think that were great questions and great answering. Thank you very much. I'd now like to call forward Ms. Anu Mathur from PGP 1990. With a round of applause, let's welcome her to felicitate our panelists. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the session on rewiring the system in the era of AI flair. Please put your hands together, everyone. Mr. Vineeth Suresh, Mr. Deval Shah, and Dr. Anilesh Seth. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Anu. Ladies and gentlemen, AI is no longer a future conversation. It's already changing how businesses operate. But the real challenge is knowing where and how to adopt it. So Quantana helps enterprises navigate AI adoption through consulting, advisory, and custom software solutions. So you can go ahead and visit them. They're just right outside at the Ventures Showcase. Please visit Quantana. So with that, I know everybody must be hungry after a whole packed session in the first half. So it's now time to break for lunch. So let's all report back at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock is when we'll start our next session. Lunch is on the floor just above this one, so you can take the escalator right in the front there. So if you take the escalator, you will head to the Royal Ballroom. That's where lunch is served. We'll see you all here at 2. Thank you.